what we didn't do last time is actually name that file before we brought it in. So naming it does not mean that it's going to be saved, but it does mean it will have a name. So let's go ahead and create it. And we have flyer. So let's say, let's just pretend that we're creating a flyer for a client or for our church or for a family friend. And they assume, well, we assumed that they were going to print this flyer, but then we found out that this flyer is actually going to be used on social media. So now what we have to do is change the color mode from CMYK to RGB. So let's go to image mode, and notice we see that we have CMYK selected. We're just going to select RGB, and now the color mode is RGB instead of CMYK, which it is now ready to be on a screen instead of printed. So now that we've done that, let's talk about saving our work. So you always want to save your work. It's a good idea to save it every so often, even if it's every minute or whatever. But it's a good idea to initially save your work. So we'll go to File and Save, and we'll have two places we can save. We can save to our Creative Cloud, which means that even if our computer crashed and exploded and we had to buy a whole new computer, that our work will still be in the cloud and available. Or we can just save it to our computer where where it could potentially be lost at some point. Either way, so so let's talk about our autosave recovery mode. So we can actually set up Photoshop to save our work every 5 minutes. So how do you do that? Let me show you. So you go to File. Oh no, you don't go to File. You go to Photoshop. Then you go to Preferences, and then you click on File Handling. Now, for those of you who are on a PC, then you wouldn't go to Photoshop to get the preferences. You would go to Edit to get the preferences. Then you will find Preferences, which I don't have it here because I'm on a Mac. Then you will go to Preferences and go to File Handling. And there you will find where it says automatically save recovery information every 5 minutes. You can change it to 10, 15, 30, or an hour. But make sure that's checked. Once that is checked, and mine is already checked, so I don't have to check it, you just press OK, and that's it. Now let's talk about metadata. This is some pretty cool stuff. So if I go to File, File Info, I can type in keywords. So I would probably put the client's name. And then if I wanted to do a different keyword, I would put a semicolon. And then I would say flyer and whatever the flyer was about. So I would put the topic, a bunch of words there that was related to this flyer, just in case if you have files who well, let's say you're one of those people who just would forget the name of the file. This could help you find it. And what I mean by that is that if I were looking for a file and I had all of these files right here, what I could do is actually type in the name of the file that I'm looking for. Let's say I'm looking for the typography file, typography. So a few files came up, but I actually put a keyword in a special file that I'm looking for that I know other files don't have. I put the word goober in it. And now notice that when I search my computer for this file that has the metadata keyword goober, the only file that pops up is this file. And that's because in my metadata, I typed in the word goober, which is pretty cool, right? Yeah, it's pretty cool. So you can also, you could have like secret files if you wanted to. Maybe I'm starting something scary. I don't know. But anyway, let's go to copyright status. If I wanted to change my copyright status, I could do that right here and make it copyrighted, which means that you need my permission to use whatever I'm creating right now. Now, if you put it on public domain, then that means anybody can use this file, and you don't need my permission. Even if you were getting paid by using it, then there's nothing that I can say. And that's most people just leave it at unknown, but it doesn't. Well, it does matter. let's not say that, but it matters. It just depends on your personal preference. All right, so the next thing we want to talk about is how to add or how to place an image. And there are two ways to place an image. If you go to File, Place, you'll see there's Place Embedded and Place Linked. We're going to look at Place Linked first. So if I go to Place Linked, and let's say I have this file. I want you to notice something. Right here in my layers panel, and I'll just move this over here so you can see it better. In my layers panel, I have this little box at the corner of this layer. That's basically saying that, hey, this is a linked file. It's like a little chain link right here. So if I double click that, I actually jump into the original file. So now I'm in the original file, and if I wanted to make any changes, let's say I just wanted to scribble using my paintbrush tool. So I have my paintbrush tool here. Let me change the color to white so we can see it better. And I'm just going to scribble along here, just mess up the image. And then I'm going to exit out, and yes, I'm going to save it. Now, let's let it save. There we go. Now notice that this is saved over here. Now, if I did this with embedded, it would still save over here. But what would not happen with embedded is that if I wanted to place this file, it would not have saved right here. Like, the file itself would not have been affected. But because it's linked, the file is affected. So let's go back and let's delete that layer, and let's save this again. But this time, let's delete that. And I just press backspace to delete it. So now this time we're gonna go to File, and we're gonna Place Embedded. And now you can see the big difference in just 1 second as soon as it loads. So now let's press enter to get it to place in there. There we go. Now I have the same option, it just looks different. So I'm just going to double click just like I did before, and I'm going to add a layer, and I'm just going to scribble again, exit out of it, save. Now, like I said, this scribble will make it over here to my file. That's no surprise. But the thing is, if I go to File, Place, Linked or Embedded, if I just go back to that file, notice that file has not changed. That's because my embedded file only changes for this file that I'm working on. My linked file changes for everything. So that file, the original file, will change if I change it in this file. So that's the big difference between linked and embedded. All right, so some important tools that you will need to know that we've actually already used is, matter of fact, let's do this. So if I go to File, Place Embedded, when I place this, believe it or not, we automatically activate the transform tool. The transform tool allows us to scale, and if we hold down the shift key, it allows us to distort. And if we hold down the alt key, I meant the option, I'm sorry, not the option key, but the control or command key, it allows us to also distort in a different way based off of what corner we pull. Um, but yeah, so that's the transform tool. How do you get to the transform tool without actually placing an image? I'm just going to place it first, and then after it is in, so now it's a regular image. And notice something else. I'm using a move tool right now. This move tool is your default tool, your go-to tool that you're probably going to have to use every time you open up the program. But anyway, how do you get to the transform tool? So you go to edit, free transform. There are also other ways to transform, but we'll get into that later. But another way you can do it is just to press Command or Control T, and you can scale it, make it larger. As long as you don't hold down the shift key, everything will scale in the correct proportion. Just be careful about when you distort something. You don't want to distort something just because you want to change, you want to make this fit. That'd be a bad reason to distort it. You can easily keep the integrity of the original photo by scaling it across the entire image without distorting it. Okay, so yeah, notice we also have the type tool and a lot of other tools here. Quick selection, lasso. We're going to get into all of that. The eraser tool is right here. So we talked about a little bit about the paintbrush. This is our paint palette. So whatever colors here is, that's where the paintbrush is dipping from, so to speak. And if I color this, I can erase it using the eraser tool. Also with the brush tool, you have hardness. So if I increase the hardness, the brush is a lot more sharp. But if I decrease the hardness, the brush is a lot softer. But that's just a brief overview of our tools. Just a very brief. We'll get more into some of the other tools later on in the course, but that's pretty much it.